I've been a professional golfer for nearly 18 years. I win golf tournaments with my attitude and my mindset. 90% of the work happens even before the ball is struck. I've succeeded and sometimes I've failed. Everyone's got anxiety or nerves around performance. There's always things that you can keep learning. It's never too late to change your habits and become healthier. I've been wearing Whoop now for like 6 years. Having tools like Whoop to help you is super important from a performance standpoint. If I want to get the absolute best out of myself,
All right, Roars.
How are you doing?
Back on the Whoop pod.
I know, it's been a while.
I know. Appreciate you doing this.
Pleasure. Good to be here.
It's been quite a few years since we've done one of these together. Lots happened. But I think most recently, you just won Players' Championship.
It's been a great start to the year. I felt like I got a little bit of momentum coming out of the 24 season. I did some good work on my game in sort of the fall, like October, November time, started to see some good results. And then I've been able to carry that into the first few months of this year. Great win at Pebble in sort of end of January. And then, a great win at the Players. It's always nice to start the year with that sort of momentum, especially going into like the major season. You really want to have your game peak between April and August. That's really the time where you want to play your best golf. But I think to start the way I have this year, it's been really good to see, and it obviously gives me a lot of confidence going into this sort of vital time in our season.
It seemed to me like you won that tournament with, I don't know, maybe your B+ game. Would you say that was your A+ game?
Sometimes I feel like that's being disrespectful to like the other players in the field.
Sure. I mean, that's my observation. You didn't say it, I said it.
I definitely didn't feel like I played my best golf, but I played good enough to get the job done. Usually when I win golf tournaments, I win by dominating off the tee, ball striking it really well. I can hole in a few putts here and there when I needed to. It felt like at the Players, I won with sort of my attitude and my mindset and my short game. I chipped and putted really well that week. A lot of like recovery shots I played really, really well. So it wasn't, whenever you think about when I win a golf tournament, it wasn't like a typical win for me. But I think that's a really good thing because it shows that even if some parts of my game aren't firing 100%, I can fall back on other parts to sort of make up for it.
Yeah, in a way, it seems like it'd be confidence boosting to win the tournament, even if you didn't feel like you played the perfect, round to Rory McIlroy standards.
Yeah, I think it's a confidence boost knowing that when I step onto the tee at any tournament, I don't have to play my absolute best to win. And also it gives you like a level of comfort knowing that, okay, well, if things maybe don't go the way you want to, you're going to be able to figure it out and you're going to be able to do other stuff to, as I said, to like make up for the fact that maybe one part of your game isn't on that day. I talk about being a much more complete golfer now than I was a few years ago. And I think wins like at the Players' Championship this year sort of validate that.
You mentioned during a press conference that you view pressure as a privilege. What does that mean to you?
I don't see the point in putting all this time and effort into what I do and into my career and trying to master my craft if I don't get to prove to myself that I can do it under the most intense pressure and in the biggest moments in our games. Like, why do I spend hours a day doing this if I can't get to the arena of where I want to get to and not see what I'm made of? I think that's the thing. So, there's no pressure when you just finish 30th every week. You coast along, and I don't want to do that. It's not the reason that I play the game. It's not the reason that I dedicate so much time to it. So I think that's what I mean when pressure is a privilege. It's it's awesome to be in those environments, and being in those environments more often, it really sort of lets you know where your game is and what you need to work on. And I've been in those environments a lot over the last few years. Sometimes I've succeeded and sometimes I've failed, but the failures are also good because you go back to the drawing board and you understand why didn't it work out for you? What do you need to do differently next time? And that's a whole evolving process. Like, I'm never going to figure this game out. Like, I will try my best to get as close as possible, but there's always things that you can keep learning.
Well, you had a huge moment on the 18th hole of your final round, right? You were 73 feet for birdie. Really there, you're probably thinking about just making a 2-putt. And you lag it to about 4 feet. That was a big 4-footer.
Yeah.
And plus, to your point about, overcoming challenges in your career, like you had a 4-footer at the US Open.
Yep.
And what's going through your mind at that moment? Are you realizing sort of the background of that moment, or are you just thinking, I just got to make a 4-footer?
Yeah, I just gotta, so I get it on the green, and it wasn't the best second shot, and I knew that as you said, like, I'm not trying to hold that putt. I'm just trying to get it up there somewhere close, knock in the second putt, and hopefully be in a playoff. I had a really good first putt. Yeah, it was probably like 5 feet, I would say, and which is still like, a very, makeable putt. And at the moment, the light was fading too, so I was, again, like, you hear people say this, but I was really into my process. I was trying to read the putt. I was trying to see if there was any sort of movement in it. I didn't see a whole lot. I thought, if anything, if I hit it straight, it might just creep in the left side of the hole. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just hit this straight and firm. And if anything, it moved right and caught the right edge of the hole. Yeah. So I'm glad I give it enough speed to hold on. But I think to have the clarity of thought to think about not just the speed, but think about think about the line, think about the speed, but also like, well, I'm just going to take that variable out of it and hit a little harder and make sure that this ball isn't going to break out of the hole. That's all I was thinking about at the time. But then obviously, once you hold the putt, you start to think about, well, geez, I'm glad I hold that, because the narrative that had been building up since the US Open last year, not that it completely goes away, but it certainly quietens the noise around that a little bit.
And so you just felt very present in that moment. Like you wouldn't have a flashback to a prior tournament or anything like that.
No, I think you never really know what's going to pop into your mind at any given point. But I think when something undesirable pops into your mind, that's when you just have to, replace that with a better thought and visualize the ball going in the hole, or visualize, sometimes when I'm reading a putt, I see myself over the putt and hitting the putt and the ball going in the hole. Like, to me, that's a big visualization key to me.
In the third person. So I see myself, making a swing or making a stroke. And yeah, that's a big thing for me. So if something does pop into your head of like a flashback to a certain moment that you haven't done what you've wanted to, just replace it with that visualization, and that's something that works well for me. And you'll do it right before a shot.
Yeah. So and usually, like, if I'm unsure, if I'm in two minds about what shot to hit, if I'm unsure of like reading a putt, like a line on a putt, it's more those sorts of moments. It just sort of gives me clarity to decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'd rather be decisive and be wrong than be indecisive and be right. I think you're gonna more times than not hit a better golf shot if you're decisive, even if you don't necessarily make the right choice.
That reminds me of something you told me about putting, which is that you actually feel like 90% of putts, at least for you, almost happen before you ever hit the putt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the putter moves this much. There's not a ton that can go wrong in that amount of time. So to me, it's all about, the skill of hitting a putt is hitting it at the right speed and on the right line and marrying those two things up. And that has a lot to do with the right side of the brain and creativity and getting into that sort of flow state. So to me, all of that stuff happens before you even hit the putt. That's where I talk about, 90% of a putt and the work that you're doing on it happens even before the ball is struck. And then if you're in a really good mindset or in a really good frame of mind before you hit it, it just makes it, your chances of holding that putt so much more.
And so when you think back on a round, will you replay in your mind, like, did I have the right strategy going into a specific putt or a specific shot?
I think all of my bad shots, or the shots that don't go the way I want them to, it's more so to do with the choices I make before I even pull the club back. So it's decision making, or a little bit of strategy, or course management, or like misreading the wind, or why did I try to hit that shot? Why didn't I try to hit something else? And I don't know if that's to take blame away from myself in the physical sense and be like, well, I made a good swing, or I made, because most of the times when I don't do what I want to do, it's because of
not being as committed as I should be before I hit that golf shot. If I'm fully committed over every shot that I hit in a round of golf, it'll usually end up being a good round.
On the topic of visualization, I had an interesting interview with Alex Honnold, who famously scaled El Capitan without a rope, like, you know, in the movie Free Solo. What I expected him to say about visualization is that he would just imagine all of the things going right. And in fact, he was someone who would visualize all of the things going wrong too. Like, he would picture all the different ways he could die. And he would picture in great detail, like dying. And so I'm curious for you, when you're thinking about, you know, an upcoming Masters or a big tournament or a big shot, like, will you ever go there, like, you know, missing short putts and how do you come back and that sort of thing? Or do you try to have more of a positive reinforcement?
I say this all the time, it's counterintuitive to a lot of people to do this, but I do, if you're trying to overcome anxiety or nerves around performance, I do try to think about, well, what's the worst that could happen? I'm not going to die on the golf course, thankfully. So, you know, I have a much easier job than Alex has. But like, I used to have like first tee nerves, like big time. I would struggle on the first tee. And so I would say to myself, well, what's the worst that could happen? So you hit it in the trees. Okay, then what do? You go up there and you figure it out. You know, you're skillful enough to hit a punch shot out of the trees and, you know, get it up to the green and get it up and down and make a par and move on. For whatever reason, imagining like the worst case scenario gave me a level of comfort, because I felt like any worst case scenario that I could bring up in my head, I'll be able to deal with, especially on the first tee for me. Because when you, as you know, if you get nervous on the golf course, you get tight and you get like guidey, and so it gives me a sense of freedom. And like, if I can swing free, that's when I play my best golf. So whatever thought process I need to get into to get there, whether that's imagining the worst case scenario, but I also have like, there's positive reinforcement too. I think I'm not standing behind a tee shot and visualizing myself hit a bad shot. Like, I'm visualizing myself hitting it where I want to. But I think just even before I get to that point, thinking, well, what's the worst that can happen? And then if the worst that can happen isn't that bad, it's like, well, that's okay.
You'll be able to manage it.
Yeah.
It's interesting just to hear you talk about having first tee nerves, you know, because like, as someone watching you, that doesn't seem like something that's ever present. I think one thing people underestimate is the degree to which professional athletes are good at masking the nerves that they're feeling.
For me, I think we've talked about this before, but like, I'm a terrible mouth breather. Like, I breathe a lot through my mouth. So whenever I feel that way, I just remind myself to keep my mouth shut. Just breathe through my nose. And that is a way that I can get my heart rate to calm down and to feel a little more calm about everything. And it's like, when I'm in the final round of a big tournament and like I'm on the back nine, like the one thing I try to do is, like, even walking between shots, is I just try to keep my mouth closed and just breathe through my nose.
So you just focus a lot on your breathing.
Most important thing when you're performing for me is just mouth closed. Like, I do breathing exercises outside of the golf course, and whether it be after a gym session or before I go to bed or whatever it is. And that, then you obviously, if it's 4 in or 6 out, whatever type of breathing that you're doing, I think when you're in a more controlled environment, I think you can start to count the seconds a little bit easier and stuff. But whenever I'm in that state on the golf course and there's pressure and there's everything going on, I think for me, the simple key of just keeping my mouth closed is a good one.
Does a lot. And for people listening to this and wondering what we're talking about, so like 4 in and 6 out would mean you're inhaling for 4 seconds, yes, and then you're exhaling for 6 seconds. Yeah. And by having a longer exhale, you're actually putting your body in more of a parasympathetic state, which in turn relaxes you. Yeah. The opposite thing would be, inhaling for, a much longer period of time and exhaling short. Yeah. And that would put you in like a sympathetic state. Yeah. And almost looks like someone's hyperventilating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So these are different techniques that obviously you've mastered. How did you develop some of these breathing techniques?
I worked with my trainer Ro on a lot of that stuff. He's worked with Navy SEALs before that have to, they have to alter their state a lot if they're going in for a mission, or, they don't know when they're going to have to be ready to do certain things. I've gained a lot of knowledge through that from him and the work that he's done with the SEALs. He would primarily want me to do like 2 sessions a day, like one like after my gym session, maybe one before I go to bed at night. If I get one in a day, it's a good fit. Yeah, that's a win for me. So but you know, every little helps, and again, it's all about just trying to build those really good habits. And you know, since I started to do this, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, it's made a huge difference.
Let's talk about just fitness and training a little bit. You've gone from a resting heart rate of about 55 beats per minute in January to down to 49 in March.
Yep.
Your recovery's up from being kind of in the low 60s to now being on average 74% on Whoop. Your sleep's close to 90% right now. You're getting over 7.5 hours. Looks like you're turning a gear here.
Yeah, I think as well, you know, from the start of the year, you go over the Christmas period and you're maybe, you know, that's our off season. So maybe not quite as disciplined as you are throughout the season. Maybe not practicing the habits that you should practice every day. You're still trying to, you know, get by and whatever. I think it's the same for everyone. Once the turn of the year comes around, you sort of try to dial it back in a little bit. But yeah, you know, I've been wearing Whoop now for like 6 years. And like I know, like you know when you're doing the right things, and you know when you're not. Like obviously it's great to have the Whoop tell you that you're on the right track, but at this point it's like I know if I do X, Y, and Z, then you know, unless I'm sick, I'm gonna get a good recovery. I'm 35. I'm not one of the younger guys anymore, so a lot of these little habits that help along the way. I think for me, I don't maybe have the buffer that I used to have 10 years ago. So I have to be really disciplined about everything that I do. And especially weeks where I'm at golf tournaments, weeks where I'm looking to perform at the highest level. You know, I maybe just have to be a little more disciplined now than I was 10 years ago, because you know, time catches up with you. And I'm not saying I feel just as good now as I did at 25, but I think that's because of all the things that I try to put in place to make sure that I wake up every day feeling rested and recovered and ready to go.
What are some of those habits, like when you want to be really dialed?
Caffeine consumption, you know, gets cut off at like 2 p.m. for me. I'm trying to eat, you know, at least 2 hours before bedtime. I'm taking magnesium and theanine and, you know, the things that I feel like I need to do or supplements that I need to take before going to bed to just put me in a relaxed state. Blue light blocking glasses go on around 5 or 6 p.m. Those are great. And then sometimes I'll do like some heat. So whether it's like an Epsom salts bath or sauna, I'll try to do that at nighttime. That's really it. I mean, sometimes you don't get all of those things in, but I think for me, magnesium, theanine, blue light blocking glasses, and then, you know, making sure that the room is pretty cold before going to sleep. If I can at least get, you know, 2/3 or 3/4 of those little habits dialed in, you know, I know I'm going to have a pretty good night's rest.
The week of a major or a big tournament, like what will you do from a fitness standpoint?
So Monday through Wednesday, which are like our practice days, I try to get 2 really good sessions in. So I'll get a strength session and an explosive session. I'd say Monday is strength usually. Tuesday is like more of a practice day, so golf day. I might do just some like very basic mobility stuff in the gym to warm up, and then Wednesday would be like the explosive day.
And what's explosive?
So box jumps, medicine ball throws, lighter loads but moving them faster. So the one thing that I've prided myself on in my career is as I've gotten older, my swing speed's gotten faster,
which is amazing.
Which I'm trying to counteract that time component of, you know, time catches up with every athlete at some point. So I'm just trying to push that down the tracks as much as possible. So that's really more of, you know, moving those loads fast and trying to keep my swing speed, because it's such an important part of our game, especially, you know, we got these 20, 21-year-olds coming out that are hitting it miles, and, you know, I'm up here at 35, and if I feel like I can keep up with them, plus all the experience that I've had and sort of all of the things that I've that I've been able to learn along the way, I feel like I've still got, if I can keep up with them off the tee, I feel like I've got an advantage in the other things.
Do you feel like you're swinging faster or like trying to swing faster? Or does it feel like you're swinging the same speed as you did when you were younger, but it just is faster?
Yeah. So I'm trying to, I'm not, it's not like I'm trying to swing out of my shoes.
Yeah.
I maybe do that once a week to try to,
like shock the system.
Shock the system, sort of have your nervous system get used to what that feels like. But yeah, so I'll swing normally, and my normal swing, 10 years ago was maybe 120 miles an hour. Yeah. And my normal swing now is like 125, 126.
And if you're trying to really juice it,
130.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can get it up there if I really want to. But
does the ball speed proportionally get that much faster too?
Yeah, so for every 1 mile an hour of club head speed, it's about 2.5 miles an hour of ball speed. It's a big difference.
So your ball speed at 125 would be what versus 130?
Ball speed at 125 is usually around like 185, 186. And then at 130, you're up at like 192, 193.
How far can that make the ball go?
If you get the right launch conditions, so like the speed is one thing, but then the spin and the launch angle are others. But if you like optimize your spin and your launch with a 192 mile an hour ball speed, you're looking the ball going 340 in the air, probably running out to 360.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to a week at a major in your fitness. So Wednesday's explosive.
Yeah, Wednesday's explosive. And then when I do my warm-ups, Thursday through Sunday, they'll probably go Thursday and Saturday will be strength. It'll just be like a mini version of what I did on Monday. I don't do anything different. I do the same loads. I just do less volume. Okay. So if I'm doing like Bulgarian split squats on Monday, I'll do the same thing on Thursday with the same load, but instead of doing 4 or 5 sets, I'll do 2 sets. So it's really just to wake the nervous system up and sort of get that effect.
And will you do that even if you have like a 7 a.m. tee time?
Yeah.
So you'll just get up really early?
Yeah, so I get to the golf course about 3 hours before. Okay. And if we do have a cold plunge there, I'll usually start the day with getting in there for, 3 or 4 minutes.
Which is great.
Which is awesome. And then about 2.5 hours before my tee time, I'll get in the gym and do my like whatever exercises like I have to go through that day. Then it's usually some breakfast, and then, hit the range, putting green, whatever. And, that 3 hours actually can go pretty quick. And that's like, I've got my routine so dialed in. It's like, if I don't get those 3 hours before my tee time, I feel rushed and I feel like I can't, I think as well, like a lot of athletes, they're so routine based, and like if they don't check the boxes, they don't feel ready. So I just want to feel like I check all the boxes before I go out to play.
And after a round, any type of cool down or stretching?
If I feel like I need to hit balls, I can go and hit some balls and whatever. And then sometimes. So for me, everyone's got their little like problem areas or areas they need to maybe put a bit more focus and attention on. So I'll either do some stuff with like I've got one of those so rights or so as things. So I sometimes can get, especially with a lot of the stuff I'm doing, my golf swing, that can get really tight. So I that's an area of focus but it's easy. I lie on that and, watch TV or whatever it is, but I know that I'm doing some good stuff. And then sometimes I'll get some physical therapy or like massage just to, especially at like a place like Augusta where it's a pretty hilly walk and your legs can feel pretty heavy at the end of the day, just sort of getting your legs flushed out at the end of the day, or wearing Normatec boots or whatever it is, like that definitely helps as well.
Do you ever find yourself watching highlights of your own round or even like the highlights of the tournament, or are you trying to just like move on?
Sometimes I do, but I think that's more because of ill discipline rather than I'd rather not.
It's better not to.
It's way better not to, because I'd much remember my round through my own eyes than through watching on TV. It was a hard lesson. So when I won the US Open in 2011, like it was my first major, and like I was so excited, and the next week I was off and I watched all of it back. But because of that, this is 14 years on from that, all I can remember from that week on the golf course is the visual of the TV and not actually of what I experienced through my own eyes.
Oh, that's interesting. Like it changed your memory.
Yeah, it did. which is really, so I learned a hard lesson from then, where it's like I really shouldn't watch myself play on TV or watch highlights, because it just blurs my memory of what I actually felt and seen that day through my own eyes.
So it sounds like then a bunch of the tournaments you've won, or maybe all of them, you haven't actually watched yourself win it.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating in a way.
Yeah. When I retire at some point, I'll
Yeah,
have a
maybe
chance
you'll
to
do
do
that.
it. But
Yeah.
I think right now, if I want to get the absolute best out of myself, I'd much rather remember all of those moments through my own eyes instead of, you know, watching on TV or hearing the commentary or whatever it is.
It reminds me of something Lorne Michaels said. Lorne Michaels, the creator of SNL, which has now been on for like 50 years. And he was talking about how he doesn't like to read books or documentaries on SNL at all, because he finds that it starts to change his own memory of what actually happened.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's just a fascinating concept, but it reminded me of it. Let's talk a little bit about longevity. You know, for Whoop, for the first year in the company's history, we updated our mission. And so our mission today is to unlock human performance and health span. Health span, of course, speaks to this idea that you don't want to just try to live more years. You want those years to be super high quality. Yep. And so we're releasing a lot of functionality and technology over the coming year that's really geared towards helping people understand not just how they can perform better, but also perform better for longer and live longer. Is that a word that's sort of ringing in the back of your mind? You know, 35 years old, longevity, do you think about it?
Absolutely. Golf, and especially professional golf, is skewing younger. So I was once the young kid out there and you know, doing my thing, and now there's rarely a group that I play in where I'm not the oldest person in that group. So yeah, longevity is a big thing from a performance standpoint for me, and something that I'm super proud of, that I've been a professional golfer for nearly 18 years, and they've been 18 pretty high quality years, and I feel like I can continue that for at least another decade. But then whenever I look past that decade and I'm not performing at golf, you still want your quality of life to be as good as it possibly can be. And I think that's, you know, getting into health span and getting into like being your own health advocate and you know, having tools like Whoop to help you on that journey, I think is super important. And, you know, I'm so thankful that I've started that from an early age, because people get to their 50s and 60s and now they're just discovering that. And I'm not saying it's never too late to change your habits and become healthier and be focused on that. But, you know, for me to sort of figure that out at a pretty young age, and just with the advancements in knowledge and medicine and technology and everything that's going to be coming down the line, you know, it's going to be a pretty cool time to be alive and see how far that we can push it.
It's been fascinating for me just to see like longevity and health in the pop culture. Yeah. I feel like in the last few years has really started to rise and rise. Yeah. And there's more books coming out, and whether it's Andrew Huberman or Peter Attia or some of these popular podcasters now really talking about it. And it certainly seems like, you know, a conversation that you hear, especially around golf courses even, you know, guys who are 50 years old, 60 years old who want to now live longer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think golf is such a great game because you can play for so long. My dad's not quite at that point yet, but like there's going to get a point here in the next 5 to 10 years where my dad is going to start to try to shoot his age or better. Like that's such a cool thing in golf, to be able to break your age. If you're 70 years old and you can still cruise around and under 70, like that's like, I want to do that. Like that's amazing. So whether it's, Huberman or Peter Attia, I got a chance to spend some time with Peter Attia a few weeks ago, and just to think about the way we viewed like health and medicine 20 years ago compared to what it is today. I mean, it's completely different, which is amazing, because I think it's going to help people have more knowledge about their own bodies, and then, you know, because of that, they're going to be their own health advocates, and they're going to be able to live hopefully better, longer lives because of it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of what we're trying to do with Whoop, where if you think about the fact that today, you know, the richest person in the world and someone maybe who makes $50K a year, they probably have the same smartphone. Yeah. You know, and so there's been a certain accessibility in that lane, which you could call computing. that's been democratized to everyone. Health and at least access to health information has lagged way before that, so to speak. And so with a sensor like Whoop getting less expensive over time and being able to provide continuous, accurate health measurements, our goal is that we can provide that accessibility to a much larger number of people.
And especially with, you think about the cause of death in the world. I mean, the leading causes are everything that can, or a lot of things that can be monitored by Whoop, whether it's hypertension or, you know, blood pressure, whatever it may be. For example, I have myocarditis, and I've had it since I was 20 years old. And it's something that I can wear Whoop, and I can monitor my HRV, my heart rate, and obviously coming down the line, some other things that are really going to help me because sometimes with myocarditis, if you're not getting enough magnesium or you're not hydrated enough, you know, your heart can have like these little arrhythmias that are, you know, can be worrisome, or you can feel them or whatever it is. And just to be able to keep on top of that, like for me, it just gives me massive peace of mind.
Yeah, and it used to be that in order to get something like that checked, you'd have to go to a hospital and get connected to a, you know, $20,000 piece of equipment. And, you know, our responsibility is to bring that technology to your wrist in a form factor that you can use any minute of the day.
Yeah, exactly, which is amazing. I mean, just to think about where we were 20 years ago compared to today, and to think about how quickly everything is advancing with AI, and, you know, like where we're going to be in 10 years time, like it's going to be incredible.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled to have you on the journey towards it. Let's talk a little bit about this upcoming golf tournament called the Masters. Here's a list of people you probably hear often: Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods.
Yes.
What's that group got in common?
They have all won what is called the Career Grand Slam. They have won all 4 majors.
You are right on the cusp. You just got to win the Masters.
Yep.
And
sounds easy.
Yeah. And here's the good news. This was an interesting stat I got pulled. Most top 10s at the Masters in the last 10 years. We've got a group that's got 3. That's like Koepka, Scheffler. There's 6 others. Group that's got 4. Rose, Reed, Schauffele. Group that's got 5. Cam Smith, Dustin Johnson, Jon Rahm, Jordan Spieth. And only one person's got 6 top 10s in the last 10 years. Rory McIlroy.
Yep.
So look, it's a tournament that you play well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, like I've loved Augusta since the first time I laid eyes on it back in 2009. So whatever, 16 years ago when I played my first one. Yeah, look, the course sets up well for me. I love the place. I've had chances there, you know, and it goes back to what we said previously is, you know, every time that I've been there and I've had a chance, I've learned something different. So I had a chance in 2011, didn't quite happen. Played in the final group in 2018, played in the final group in the third round in 2016, finished second in 2022. You know, so I've had chances. I just haven't put it all together. You know, I've played, I think the thing with Augusta for me is I've played like a really good 63 holes a lot of times. And it's just putting together that extra 9 holes of good stuff. And whether that be at the final round, or whether that's like a bad 9 holes on the second day, or whatever it is, it's trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together in that 1 week. But I feel like I'm getting closer to doing it. So and it's an amazing opportunity to join that list that you mentioned there with Tiger and Jack and Gary and Gene Sires and Ben Hogan. I mean, just like these mythical figures in the game of golf, you know, and if I were able to join them, that would be absolutely incredible. And, you know, I feel like this year I've got just as good of a chance as I've had any of the other years. So I'm excited for it.
Do you feel like there's an element with the majors where it's almost like all the pro golfers put almost more pressure on themselves because there's like these 4 tournaments and the media talks a lot about the importance of winning those 4 tournaments. And then even to some degree, now the fans feel that way because of the fracturing with the PGA Tour and LIV.
Yep.
So it's like the first time we see you all together.
Yeah. No,
like
it is.
It keeps ratcheting up.
like everything that's happened in golf in these last like 3 or 4 years, it's benefited the majors and sort of that narrative around the majors a lot, because yeah, it is the only place where you're going to see all the best players play together. So the only place that you're going to see me play with Bryson or Brooks or John Rahm or Cam Smith or these guys is these 4 weeks a year. Yeah, look, there is that narrative. Like, so like the major championships for golf are like our playoffs. That's where we get a bump in interest and in ratings and all that stuff. Like that, you know, these are our playoff games, so to speak. You know, if you're comparing it to baseball or basketball or football. So yeah, there is more attention on them and there is more scrutiny. But we get 4 a year. You know, that's still pretty good. I mean, you think about some of these Olympic athletes that have to wait 4 years for their one chance.
It's crazy.
You know, like that to me, you know, we get 4 opportunities a year. So that's the really nice thing about golf.
I talked to Justin Thomas yesterday, and he was saying with the Masters, he feels like less is more. Like you get there and like you want to get there a couple days early almost, or like you want to do more practice rounds or more hitting, and like obviously like unbelievable facility. Is there a truth to that?
There is, yeah. There is, you know, I think people prepare differently for Augusta than they prepare for any other week of the year. Yeah. And it's like, well, you know, for the 51 other weeks of the year, you do it this way. Why for this week are you doing it another way? Right. And I've fallen into that trap a few times as well, where, you know, yeah, if you go up and you just prepare like you prepare any other week, sometimes I feel like guys give the place a little too much respect. Right. You know, it's like, well, I have to prepare for all different scenarios, and I got to hit 5 chips from over here, and I got to hit 10 putts from this position on this green. It's like we're only going to play this place 4 times, and like the chance that we're going to hit it in all these places is very, very slim. Right. So, and we're the best players in the world. We're going to figure it out. Yeah. So less is, you got to prepare and you got to do the right stuff, but you also, it's a very draining week because of everything that you said, the attention, you know, you've got the media. It's a pretty hilly golf course anyway. You've got the par 3 tournament on Wednesday. You've got, you know, it's just a lot of stuff. So if you can do just enough and make sure that you conserve a lot of your energy so that you put all of that into the 4 days, you know, that's the biggest thing.
Do you have a favorite stretch of holes there?
Once you get past 12, I feel like you have a chance. Like it's like 13's birdieable. You had a good drive in 14. 14's birdieable. 15's another par 5. 16's got the par 3, and you can hit a, you know, so yeah. Like it's a really exciting stretch of holes.
Powerful stretch.
And you can make some birdies there. But you can also, you know, you can get into trouble as well. You've got the creek on 13. You've got the pond at the front of 15. You know, it's still, there's always sort of danger lurking. But I think from an excitement standpoint, like if you're having like an average day, but you're like hanging on and you get through the 12th, like you still feel you can shoot a good score because you've got those holes coming up.
Which is cool too.
Yeah.
There's also something really fascinating about the wind there,
yeah,
which is hard to appreciate until you've played there. But like especially around 12, 13, you can see trees going in different directions. You can see flags blowing in different directions.
Yeah. I mean, so I played a practice round in 2009. So my first Masters with Tom Watson, and Tom, you know, one of the greatest players to ever live. And what he told me was, wherever the wind is supposed to be on the 12th tee, as soon as you feel it there, hit it. Like that was sort of his, like you want to feel the wind where it's supposed to be. And once it's there, you know, then you go. But yeah, I've been on the 12th tee before, and the flag on the 11th green is blowing into the wind. And then the flag on the 12th green is blowing straight downwind, and you're just like, what am I supposed to do? And you've got water short, and you've got these bunkers long that are a terrible miss, and it's a very, very shallow green. I mean, it's one of the coolest and best par 3s in the world, but it can get really tricky.
Yeah, it's wild too how many tournaments come down to that hole and that shot.
Yeah, that's what like everyone says. The Masters doesn't start until the back nine on Sunday because there's so many things that can happen. When Tiger won there in 2019. You know, of the last 3 or 4 groups, it was like he was the only one to hit it onto that green, and everyone either, you know, missed it or hit it in the water, or, you know, that's
5 of 6 players in the last 2 groups, one in the water.
Yeah.
It's like Finau and Molinari and Koepka.
Yeah.
It was Justin Rose.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And Tiger was the one that plays smart, played to the left. So like it's, you know, again, like when it's like that, I think that's when there's so much great stuff that comes with experience in golf. Like Tiger's played that hole hundreds of times, and he knows, well, today with this pin position, with this wind, if I hit it into the middle of the green and I 2-putt from 40 feet, like I'm not going to lose anything to the field. He was disciplined enough to do it, and I think that was a really impressive thing.
I guess I have to ask you briefly about LIV.
Sure.
Because you haven't really answered many questions on this topic.
No.
Does it matter to you that the sort of whole thing comes back together, or at this point do you just think about your own golf game?
So to me, like personally, selfishly, I don't care. Okay. Like I'm focused on my own golf, and I'm going to play the tournaments that I want to play, and I'm going to try to beat the golfers that I play with on that given week. I think for the overall good of the game, like taking myself out of it,
sure,
it would be better if we were all back together a little more often. And we were talking about, like, obviously the majors get that bump because we are, but I think golf needs that bump more than 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, for the good of the game, absolutely, it needs to come back together a little more often than it does. But from a personal standpoint, I'm happy with where my game is. I'm happy where everything is. Whether it gets sorted out or not, I'm good regardless.
Well, I'm happy to see the place that you're in with it, you know, because I felt like, I don't know what it was, 18 months ago, like you were so in the epicenter of it. Yeah. I think you had to carry a lot of weight for it.
It was distracting. It probably took time away from focusing on my day job, which is trying to be the best golfer that I can be. But it also took time away from other things I want to do outside of golf. Like, instead of being on these board calls, like, I want to go and play with my daughter. I want to see her grow up. I want to do all these other things. I want to take vacations, whatever it is. So yeah, I felt like, I don't regret it, because I still think like it was the right thing to do. But it got to the point where I realized that no matter how much time or effort I put into it, I alone cannot influence what way this is going to go. Like, there's so many other more people involved than me. And that's where I just thought, it's better to take a step back, focus on myself, and, let these other guys try to figure it out.
In a world where they stayed separate for a while, could you ever imagine like a Ryder Cup style match against them?
I could.
Like PGA Tour versus LIV.
Yeah, I could, but then at the same time, do you want to give them that platform? Like, right. If I'm from the PGA Tour side, that's got all of this, like, so many things in their favor. So that's where it's like, I don't know if you would want to do that. And we've got the Ryder Cup. Like, all of the best players most of the best players in the world that are European and American, we have the Ryder Cup anyway. We also have the President's Cup. But like, if it was a made for TV thing, like a one-off occasion exhibition, I think it would be cool. It would generate some excitement, but I don't know if it would be something that would be like a long-term thing.
Yeah. Ryder Cup, Bethpage Black. I mean, you're arguably the most popular golfer, one of the most popular golfers in the world. You're going to be like really unpopular.
I'm going to be very much
like, that might be the most booed
enemy number one.
Yeah.
I've talked a lot with Luke Donald about it, and and I think like it's a week where you're just, going back to like the breathing, going back to getting yourself in any sort of parasympathetic state if you can, just to not be reactive to hearing things. Or it's not like it's a football game and the crowd, they're right there, they're right there on the rope line. So you really do feel like you're in the middle of it. So yeah, it's going to be a week for me to be super disciplined and to focus on all of those things that we've talked about in this podcast, to just make sure I put myself in a really good state of mind, because like, again, I'm not just playing for myself out there, I'm playing for my teammates. And if I start to get reactive to whatever I hear, that's not good for them. So I want to try to be as good of a leader as I can and try to set the tone and set the example. So yeah, it's something that I've thought about a lot, and there's a few little strategies we're talking about to try to make sure that we're in the the best place possible to overcome that.
Well, it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, well, it'll be fun to play, and I can't wait for it.
Roars, thanks for doing this. Very
Pleasure.
grateful to have you as a partner to Whoop and everything that you do for the game.
I'm glad to be a part of it, and I love Whoop, and it's honestly changed my life. So thank you.
Thanks, brother.